What's up, people? I'm back again with a short little breakdown of my latest project, which I shot in December of last year. It's kind of a mini documentary slash short film. If you haven't seen it yet, make sure to check it out. And yeah, let's hop into the breakdown. On the first day, we shot in the house and at my friend's training spot. And as our lighting equipment was pretty limited, the overarching theme, especially with the interior scenes, was to create silhouette shots. Looking at the first screen grab, there were no extra lights used here, and this can be tricky sometimes, because you don't want to introduce any noise. But on the other hand, it can be a blessing, because you can put more effort into the composition. In this case, I framed the subject between the door and the frame to create some depth, and made sure to shoot against the light source. In this case, the window, to backlight everything and to get this subtle silhouette. I also opened the door to the balcony, which was right here, to get a little edge light on his back to make him pop out a little bit more. Speaking of composition, I want to illustrate how important it is to understand how lighting works and how to use natural light to your advantage. If you look at the full clip, we see that the image has a nice amount of contrast. We have this soft diffused light going through the blinds, leaving us with this strong silhouette. Looking at the same clip but from another perspective, it's literally night and day. We get a totally different vibe. It's really flat without any depth or shadows. It's not necessarily worse, but it doesn't fit the moody and dark look that I was going for. So changing just the camera position can make a drastic difference on the look and the overall atmosphere of a scene. The rest of the interior shots are basically done with the same philosophy in mind. Pulling the blinds down to get a softer, more diffused light, backlighting, creating a frame within a frame to get some depth. And what I also like to do sometimes is to use mirrors. In this case, for the bathroom scenes, to add an additional layer of depth. For this one, I placed a small light right here to illuminate the jackets, as I noticed some noise in this part of the image. It doesn't visually distract that much, but helps a lot to avoid noise in the shadows. I also tried to block some light off to get more shadows on his side of the face. This actually gave me a new idea to completely turn off the bathroom lights for the wide shot. In the end, I had two different versions of the same scene. Let me know which one you prefer. But I have to admit, a lot of finding angles and interesting perspectives was trial and error. If you don't know the location too well or have limited lighting equipment, move the camera around and just experiment. If you have enough time, of course. I'd rather have a variety of different perspectives of a scene than 20 clips of essentially the same shot, only for the sake of getting the perfect one. This is also important for the editing phase later on. If you captured a scene from many different angles, you have more flexibility when it's time to arrange the clips to tell a story. For the exteriors, I used my gimbal for some of the tighter shots and went mostly handheld for the wider ones. We were pretty lucky with the cloudy weather, as it gave us this really diffuse light, but in hindsight I would have liked to get some more shadows on his face by blocking some light off or using negative fill. That's maybe something to consider for the next project. Again, we had a bunch of different training shots that didn't make it into the final cut. Because for the exteriors, I mainly wanted to get some fast-paced scenes for the intro. Another idea I had was this lock-on effect on the push-up, which was basically just a handheld wide shot that I stabilized in post and tracked to follow the movement of the push-up, which in my opinion gave the intro a much more dynamic vibe. On day 2, we went to the forest and the office. For this one, I wanted to break with the dark and moody interiors a bit and went with the pretty wide shot in the forest. This was back in December of last year. I had to run quite fast in the snow and had to jump over some trees while keeping him in the center of the frame, which was quite hard, but I really like the look of it with the trees passing by and the sun in the background. It's really unfortunate though that I had some rendering issues on some clips, which was probably caused by the YouTube compression. But if any one of you has experienced something similar and has a solution to this issue, then please let me know in the comments. In the office I filmed some fast-paced clips for the intro again, and also this scene. For this one I made sure to completely fill the frame. His face, the lamp and the monitor, all of them covering negative space. If you want to include props into the scene or avoid negative space, make sure that they make sense. Okay, now let's get to the editing and color grading part. First of all, I want to talk about noise. I often get the question how I avoid noise with my Sony a6400, which is an APS-C camera. Even though the majority of my projects are filmed with minimal lighting equipment or even natural light, I try to never really shoot in absolutely dark environments. For example, with the interiors, it seems like it's pretty dark in the scene, but looking at the log footage and the Rec 709 image, it's actually quite bright. I just bring down the highlights a lot in post and shift the white balance pretty drastically towards blue. But let's talk about it a little bit more in depth. At first I like to start with 4 nodes in our node tree. If you want to name them, you can do that as well. The first node is usually for exposure, the second node for white balance, the third node is for the Rec 709 conversion, and the last node is for creating your desired look. To get a general overview on how the image is looking, I like to go into my third node and apply a Rec 709 conversion LUT. My preferred choice would be the neutral LUT out of the Phantom LUT pack by Joel Famolaro. I've already made a video about the Phantom LUTs, so if you want to know more about them, just check this video out or the link down below where Joel talks a lot more in depth about them. After applying my Rec 709 conversion LUT, I go into my first node and pull down the gain quite drastically to around 58 to make it a lot moodier and not have those harsh highlights anymore. Then I go into my second node to adjust the white balance. I pushed the white balance pretty drastically towards blue and gave the image a green tint. In the end, you can go into your final fourth node and push the highlights to your desired look. Okay, let's actually turn down the gamma a little bit more to really get this contrasty, moody look and to make the silhouette stand out a little bit more. You can push a little bit more greens into the highlights. You can also push it a little bit more towards blue, or if you don't want to have a pretty specific look, you can also leave it alone and have a more neutral look. If you have any further questions, feel free to reach out in the comments. Thanks for watching and we'll see you in the next one.